Welcome to Crest in partnership with Elusive. Following on from Photo Boss Barley, we've scored a great guest for this one. She'll be in Verbier by the time you're hearing this, but before that, Rhino, Thomas and myself have been lucky enough to have had the chance for a chat with Jenny Jones, and I'm putting it out there that this is one of the most engaging sports people that I've ever interviewed. We were both buzzing from this one. Thanks again to Jenny for popping by. What a guest. Hope you enjoy it as much as we did. It's Crest in partnership with Elusive. Here we go.
It's the second episode of the second season, and what a guest to celebrate it with.
Joining us in the virtual studio is professional snowboarder, Olympic medalist, and far more importantly, North Devon shredder, Jenny Jones.
We discuss surf travel, mindset, stoke, and some of the big debates about the future of a growing sport. Welcome to Crest, Jenny.
Yes, all of that to follow. But first, just to make sure listeners know what they need to about this extra special guest, where to start? You had to be living a particularly oblivious existence not to have seen the breakthrough Jenny Jones made for UK board sports during the 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics. The first person to medal on snow in this island's history, and in the discipline of slopestyle too, a feat involving big air and seemingly reckless speed. Also a qualified axe thrower. It's clear this is a person with the charger gene, something Rhino knows a lot about himself.
I'm not sure I can claim a lot about that one, Tom. Some of the stuff those guys are doing is on another level, mate.
True, but would you be surprised in the least to learn that there might be a bit of crossover skill between snowboarding and surfing?
I think I can imagine there actually would be, yes. Yeah, I think so. So, yes, dear listeners, Jenny will be chatting with us today about her lifelong addiction to surfing, a sport in which she is similarly gifted. It's funny because we were talking about just this about a little bit earlier and saying how for these sort of sports like surfing, skateboarding, snowboarding, there's an attribute which the top riders have to have. It's one thing to have the ability to perform certain manoeuvres or tricks, or, to read a wave or a mountain, but since these sports are about aesthetics, the key to being at the very top of the game is doing it in a way that shows off the joy which is involved, like being able to be technically tight while still being creative enough to show off the fun of it, as well as the danger and, of course, the athleticism.
Yeah, and that is certainly something that Jenny has brought to surfing too. A stylish and powerful goofy foot with a rail game underpinned by speed and flow. It's no wonder that she's now an ambassador for Bristol's groundbreaking The Wave. So, while we may have the odd listener who's into snow, well, myself included actually, and producer Dodd, without further ado, let's welcome top UK surfer Jenny Jones to Crest. Hey Jenny, how's things?
Hi, whoa, what an intro. No pressure. Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you too. We like to give it a bit of welly, we always do on Crest, and thank you so much for coming on. We'll talk about its implications for the sport a little bit later, but can I just ask about your role at the Wave? How did you get involved, and do you get to surf it very much? That's the important bit.
Yeah, I actually got involved it was 2015, I think, when it was at the stage of planning permission, and they asked me if I would come along to the like the council meetings and things like that to kind of state why I felt the Wave would be a good thing. It was years and years ago, really. And really the comparison was that there were these dry slopes for snowboarding, and I learn on a dry slope, and that's how I got in.
Well, like as in a proper dry slope, not like a Tamworth one, like a
the ones that used to like break your thumbs when you fell over.
Yeah. One of our presenters, Elliot Dudley, like broke his finger off.
They're those like the diamond shape with the big gaps in them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No way.
Yes, I learned to snowboard on that, and that's how I got into it. And so, without that facility, to try snowboarding. I would have never tried it and I've never gone. And so that was the question, that was what I was putting forward in the meeting about what I thought was positive about having the wave, is that there's then a facility there for like youngsters and people to get amongst it in a sport that they might not be able to, I don't know, have a go at or get to. Like I wasn't in a financial position to sort of go to the mountains as a kid, so having that was amazing. And so I went and chatted about that, and it was a bit nerve-wracking actually, because there's a lot of people there who were obviously for and against having it built and things. So but it was, there was decidedly a lot more people that could see all the positives of having the wave. And then in exchange for like going and doing that, and also like promoting and also really wanting it in Bristol, because being Bristolian and that, and thinking this would be amazing to have this on our doorstep, I was like, okay. And they were like, yeah, you get to use it. And then it wasn't until like 7 years later, I was like,
wow.
Yes,
everyone involved nearly going back.
finally in.
Wow.
But it was I mean, have you guys been? Because I think it's wicked. I really do enjoy going there. Like,
I love it. I do.
I absolutely loved it. I was fortunate to go and surf the intermediate level, and then had every plan to come back. But then, of course, we went into lockdown. So my big hope is that very shortly I'll be able to go on the full barrel mode.
I've been like selling it to him all, because I had a session on the when they turned the proper barrel on, just before it closed. And it was insane. It was like, I think you got to get the wind has got to be all right, and like, but I was kind of surfing away, and then like the person leaned over the wall and said, "Oh, we're turning the barrel on now." And it was just literally like, you can see the grin on my face now. It was just literally like it was 9 waves in a row or something. And
who needs the mentality?
Proper keg, I really enjoyed it. I love though that I did not know that you'd started snowboarding. Like that. I don't know if you're familiar with the legendary surf movie North Shore, but that's like a real life Rick Kane story.
Yeah,
like,
I know North Shore. Yeah,
Arizona, and then off to Pipeline. So it's like from the dry ski slope to those incredible slope style. Wow.
Yeah, because it was because I didn't try snowboarding until I was 16. And I was and I was like, oh, this is wicked. I was like, how can I do this more? Like, so I'd actually been surfing first before that with my brothers,
right? And
down in Woolacombe and that way, and then just on your holidays. And then this was another board sport that we were like, yeah, let's try it. And literally, like half an hour free lesson on a snowboard. You don't learn much, but I was like, this is wicked. And I then deferred a year. So I deferred going to university, had to finish college, and I was like, okay.
Always a wise one.
Yeah, I was like, I'm going to try and get a job in the mountains, because I was like, that's how I don't know how else I can go and do it, but if I work as a chalet maid, maybe. And I applied for so many jobs, and you had to be over 21, and I was 18. You had to be able to speak French. I could not speak French, and you had to be able to cook. And I was like, shit, I'm in trouble here. I was like, and I got so many rejections of like, no. And literally 3 weeks before uni, so I was like, I'm going to have to go to, not have to, but I was like, I'm going to uni then, and I'd chosen a uni down near Plymouth way because it was near the surf. So I was like, okay, it means I could go surfing. And then 2-3 weeks before, someone dropped out of their job in the French Alps. I got a phone call and they said, do you want to come and work? And I was like, oh my God.
And where was that?
In Tignes, Le Brevier. In Tignes. And I had like...
Yeah, the village at the top of Tignes.
Yeah, the bottom, below the dam.
Yeah.
And they said...
Oh, right, okay, right out of Tignes. Like, it's like,
And they said... and I was like, okay, well, I got 300 quid in my pocket, and I just flew out to the French Alps and started working as a chalet maid. And that's where I essentially started properly snowboarding and spent 4 months straight snowboarding. It was mad, really, because I'm like, if that girl hadn't dropped out of the job, I just wouldn't have done any of that.
Learn with the best, the WSF Surf School, here at Llangennith Beach, South Wales. Established in 1981, the Welsh Surfing Federation Surf School is the oldest surf school in Wales. We're a not-for-profit surf school where all profits go back to the Welsh Surfing Federation. Lessons run daily from 10 till 12 and 2 till 4 via appointment. All equipment is included. Expert tuition from our experienced instructors covers the basics through to onward coaching. You're in safe hands learning with the Welsh Surfing Federation Surf School.
Yeah. So you say, like, going right back there, Jenny, that, you know, you started surfing with your brothers. Were they was that were they a big influence in one of the reasons that you got into surfing?
Yeah, and like to a lot of stuff really, like I just wanted to do what kind of they were up to. And my eldest brother, who's like 4 years older, he had the surfboard first. He got the surfboard, and then I had to have a bodyboard initially, and I was like, okay. So
as long as you're in the water.
Yeah, I was like, yeah. So
No, that's not the
and then like we'd like to have I was like to have a go on his board sometimes and stuff like that, and it would only be like a week or two a year, because that's when you went on your holidays camping, isn't it, at Woolacombe. And then we came back, and he then started. I remember him starting uni, and he went down to Plymouth, so he started. He had a group of friends all surfing all the time, and I would go and visit sometimes and get to go surf with them. And then I just did the odd bit of surfing really for that whole time. I never got to do a full chunk of it, and it wasn't until tell me if you want me to shut up as well by any point, because I'm not just start waffling on. But then the surfing for me, it was more. I'd done bits of it, and then a little bit in France or whatever. But then when I went to let's say like now jump forward a bit, my snowboarding, I'm like 2021, and I've like done these Vans Triple Crowns contests, and I'm like on a roll, and I'm like, oh my God, like at this sort of international level, and about to I was just been invited to my first ever X Games, and I don't know, but for snowboarding that was like the pinnacle of snow sports for us, because there was no Olympics or anything like that back then. And I got there, and then I crashed in the practice. I didn't even get to compete, and I was like, fuck. I was like, okay, I had to have full-blown ACL surgery, do all the rehab.
No.
Yeah,
Nightmare.
It was a night. It sucked. It sucked, and I was like,
that's like a year right there.
Oh yeah, it was kind of March time, January, February time, and then I did the rehab all in Vail, Colorado, and then what happened was I'd done like 3 or 4 months of rehab, and got back to the UK, and the physios and doctors had said, look, you can't snowboard for quite a while. And I was like, what about surfing? I don't think they realised, like, I don't know, like if someone said that now, I don't think that they would say yes to this, but they were like, yeah, okay, you can go, you can maybe go surfing. And I was like, okay, so I booked, I was like, this is it, this is my chance to actually get, that stage of surfing where you can't surf yet. You're just shouldn't say that like that, but you're riding the whitewater, but you're a little bit like, what is it all about? Why does everyone like it so much? I'm just paddling all the time. And then I was like, I'm just going to go. I'm going to go to Sri Lanka, and I'm going to spend 3 weeks there. Then I'm going to Australia, and I'm going to spend a month there. And if by the time I can't get back from there, I still can't do it, then you just have to accept your crap, and you're not going to be able to do this. So I booked a flight to Sri Lanka. I was like 21. I didn't know what I was doing. I had a surfboard, got there, and I drove in a tuk-tuk 7 hours across to the other side to go to Aragon Bay, because that was where I was. And I was like, I was pretty, at the time I was like,
it's a pretty frightening road as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And I was like,
it's like a hierarchy, like the tuk-tuks are at the bottom of it.
I know, and you eat, but it's wicked, isn't it? You eat all the local kind of yogurt and honey on the way, and this guy's like 7 hours he drove me on my. You did
the head nod thing that they do there as well. Then
and that is when I got stuck in really, and I was like, that's when I got my first proper, like face of a wave, or I don't know, the green part of the wave, and rode it and was like, okay, I got it. I get it now. And then that was it. That's all I wanted to do. Yeah. It was so fun. It was so much fun. Like Sri Lanka, this was all before the tsunami time and everything like that. And you would, you'd paddle out and come back into that peak. Is it called the Point in Aragon Bay? So at the Point, and they'd have those lovely brekkies for you, and you just pay at the end of the week. And people, met some random people that gave me loads of tips and picked up things off them, and that was then I went to Australia after that and met again random people backpacking and trying to get better. It's Australia, that was different. That's I think that's a bit of a shock, isn't it, when you've not surfed somewhere like that before. The waves are a lot more powerful.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I'm
and it's
dribbling on.
No, it's that adjustment, isn't it, for feeling the power when you're here at home in the UK, and then suddenly stepping into a place where is like, apart from like the land is so different, but the sea is just so alien in terms of the power, how fast the waves move, and it's just it can be quite daunting at times.
And the crowds being super competitive as well.
It was a massive a bit of a sort of check, really, like, no, you can't really surf yet, Jenny, still, so it's like, sort it out. but
at that time, at that time, Jenny, when you were in Sri Lanka, moving over to Australia, and obviously improving at surfing, were you like I remember back to when I was a grommet, I was just like frothing on surfing. I just couldn't get enough of it, and I was like on like YouTube and just actually there was no YouTube invented then, but
VHS.
Just looking through all the mags and stuff. But was there some sort of was there a pro, or there's some surf legend that you looked up to at that particular point that sort of maybe it sort of inspired you?
No, I know. I felt the honest answer is no. I just liked watching whoever was surfing at the place I was surfing at, you know what I mean? So in Sri Lanka, whoever was there, I was following that, and I would watch some of the videos. I definitely remember watching this surf movie called Shelter. Do you know that? It's like
I know it,
with that
I do,
soundtrack with the shins on it, and it was just obviously when I was into it all.
As we've just been saying, it's a sport which brings with it the desire to travel. Then, and so I'm just wondering whether then as you were juggling then this kind of like snowboarding career with this surfing obsession, and you've just kind of I think answered the question I was going to ask you. You talked so wistfully and exotically about travel just then, and I was going to say. Was that how it was for you? Because I know lots of people who are involved, who live a life in snow. They don't make as much of the sort of southern hemisphere snow season, and they just kind of they do a summer travel, snow like a surf summer season, and then they do the winter season in Europe. And was that how you were doing it, or was surfing also in some ways like a little bit of a chance to have a break from travel and something that you kind of did just like stuck in? You stayed in Devon and.
Yeah, well, I only just moved to Devon 3 years ago, but I was in Bristol the whole time, so I was like the classic weekend warrior, like smashing it down every time that I could. But it was very much like my getaway from the snowboarding. Once snowboarding was like, obviously I had that whole sort of period to learn to surf, get to that stage of being able to surf the waves properly, but after that, it was then straight back into snowboarding again. So once my knee was healed, that was it. I was snowboarding pretty much all the time, because you do November to April snowboarding, and then you'd get that May, June. I'd get May, June, where I'd get some surf because it's still swelling. This is all UK surfing though. Before the swell kind of disappears in July, but then July and August you're heading out to Australia and New Zealand. So I do back-to-back winters for like 5 years, 5-6 years I did that. Yeah, hardly any summertime, but I'd slot it in where I could. I'd be like. Then I started trying to slot in a Maldives trip, or and I'd choose a trip where I thought I would get my most amount of waves, which I guess is what everyone does when they go on a surf.
That's what I was going to ask as well. Then was what travel destinations have you enjoyed? You've mentioned Sri Lanka, Australia, the Maldives. Where else have you enjoyed traveling to as a surfer?
I went to Costa Rica, a long time ago with my mate Nat.
Which end?
I went to...
The north or the south, do you remember?
Yeah, no, I went to basically we tried to go to all the main spots, but their swell was so massive. We ended up going to, is it called Manuel Antonia? So you might not, because it was the only place that had, you know, that had the surf that was small enough, because it was so big everywhere, and that was wicked. I really enjoyed that because of all the wildlife and everything going on, and but what you wanted was like, it must be with you guys when you go snowboarding 1 week a year or whatever, 2 weeks a year. When I go surfing, it's literally 2 weeks a year, every year for 10 years. And you get there and you're like, oh, I just want to, and then I'm nearly getting better, and then I'm gone and I'm not doing it again.
That's exactly what would happen with snowboarding. I'd be on the Dornies first lift, and then
you'd be a proper little frother.
And I would irritate the people that I went with, because they'd all want to go and do like the après ski thing. I'd be like, no, I'm staying out until it's dark and the last lift is running, and then I just stay on the drag lift till it got dark, and everyone else is like 3 or 4 drinks down at that point. But, to my shame, I'm a teetotaler, see, Jenny, but
it's all right.
You know,
I definitely not.
And then you're exactly right. You'd start thinking like, oh, I got the hang of this, and then off you go.
Because it would be, you know, the thing that was cool about surf trips as well is it was nothing to do with competing, like nothing to do with comps, none of that, and it was the element of we're like snowboarding. You go on. Same with surfing, I'm sure of it, is you go on like used to go on mag trips, where you go off on a trip and the aim of the game was to get some shots. Exactly the same on snowboarding, but it was everything in between that was so fun, like the stories and the things you got up to, and the mischief, and the you know, you like trying to build a massive jump and dig in for like 4 hours only to like hit it and it doesn't work because the transition doesn't fit, and then you smash yourself, and you know you're in the hospital, and then you go out for beers, or all the things like that all would be in a surf trip. Like that's what I loved about the surfing, and no one was in the surf. I could be a total kook and it wouldn't matter. No one would have a clue who I was, what I was doing, how good I was, how crap I was, and I loved it, and the people you met. And it was so random, wasn't it? It still is, I'm sure, you know. But it's, I love it. I love it. I wish I could have done it more.
I know that feeling you said about, you know, the emphasis on getting the shot. Because like the number of times I reckon I've been sitting around feeling a bit eggy because I know that Rhino got the shot that
day. That's interesting, because is that because you just didn't look good on the wave, or is it because the photographer missed it, or?
Do you know what? Isn't it? I think there's a combination of all those factors. You know, like it's down to pot luck. Like you could have the best wave ever, and the photographer, oh, you got a great shot of you, and you're like, oh, look at my arm. I don't like the way that looks. Or my foot is looking a bit strange. You're like, oh.
You know, we're Wales based, so lots of our listeners will know these characters. I remember a trip over to the reefs with the Gill and Frenchie, and this set came through, and Frenchie went on one, and he got a hell of a keg. Like I think he was blown out of it and everything. And then I caught the one behind, and it was just a really nicely shaped wave, and I ended up getting a really good shot. And Frenchie says to me, I'll never forget this. Frenchie says to me, I saw him like a couple of weeks later, and Frenchie goes, "You got the shot that day because you weren't deep enough in the barrel." He was like, I didn't get the shot because I was out of sight. And he was right.
It's true.
It was because I didn't get barreled properly that I got the shot. So you know, there is a little bit of that.
I hope he kept his shot though, just for memories.
Well, it's just it's of an empty wave. I am in there with Frenchie in the balls of it. Yeah, they were sequences. I think unfortunately he came out of it on the sort of between two shutters. It's interesting because that kind of links into what I was going to ask you about as well. Then like barrels and like bravery and like snow sports. They require that kind of eye and bravery. Like I know when I go on a snowboarding trip and I see like the big kicker, like there's going to be an event somewhere, and I can see that, and I see it there in the corner and like it's closed and there's no one on it, and I look at it and I just think like, it looks like the dream job, but like. I'm here on holiday and I can just look at that thing. Whereas, like, if you're a pro, you've got to go off that thing. And it's like it's the same in surfing. You go. I remember going to Puerto Escondido and it getting really big and like seeing this little Brazilian kid, and it's like, he's got to go in. He's got to go in, you know. And
oh, really? Does
and
it
so
get to? Is it? Can it be like that where you're stood there going, I actually really don't want to do this, but I've got to.
You've got to go in.
Oh God.
I guess that's the thing, isn't it? If you're sponsored by these big companies or whoever are throwing a load of money and product or whatever at you, and suddenly you're sitting there at, say, 25-foot pipe, third reef pipe, and they're like, no, you've got to go and get a shot.
Get out there and entertain.
Paddle out. I don't want to paddle out.
And so there's that kind of iron nerves or bravery needed in the snow sports. And so I was going to ask, like, you know, if you've got that, you must have the gene for it, you know, like Rhino and I have seen the videos of you sailing through the air. Is sailing through the air the right word? No, that's like, was it flying through the air? Sailing through water, isn't it? And is that kind of adrenaline of charging?
Wait, first,
something that you...
Firstly, can I just say that surfing those massive waves is a billion times harder than going off a big jump.
Really?
Oh my!
Wow.
Like I look at that and it's just I can't even fathom it at all. It's nuts when I see this. Yeah, like, but I didn't grow up, you know, as a baby in the water, I suppose, like some people do, and the ocean awareness and like the paddle power and the breath hold and all of that. It's just unreal. Like, I really think that is unreal compared to what I would be doing.
Are you drawn to it? Because I was going to ask, is that kind of the charging, that adrenaline of like getting out there and charging and putting yourself in kind of danger? And, you know, is that something that you're attracted to in surfing?
No.
Because you must have had it in like your attitude to snow sports.
Yeah, it's different. I think in the snowboarding, I loved going off big jumps. I just love the feeling. There's just something about it that I just, you know, we did it, you know, start the small one, then I want to go to the next size up, and then can I do a 360 on it, and can I try and do, and literally the process of learning a trick and going through the air, I just got such a kick out of it. I really genuinely enjoyed that, and then learning how to combine them together and things like that. And when I think about, like, then the rails came in. So rails weren't there when I first sort of was in snowboarding. So then that came in, and I'd say that took me a little bit more to get used to. It wasn't like I was loving or obsessed by them, you know. And so, like, again, like the half pipe, I really loved the feel of riding a half pipe. Oh my God, it was so nice. But I didn't have the drive to want to do loads of crazy tricks in it. And so I remember remember it coming into the Olympics really quickly, half pipe. It was in like 1998. And I was asked, like, do you want to get involved with this and maybe try to, and I was like, nah, I really like jumping. I just knew what I liked. And so I stuck with, I love the combination as well of like going and riding big jumps and putting that with rails. And then next week going on a photo shoot trip and visiting, like, you know, Jackson Hole and riding loads of deep powder and hike, you know, like the variety that comes with snowboarding is amazing. And I think that's probably the same with surfing. But when I look at those big waves with surfing, I just will watch. I would just never, ever. I think what I love is that nice medium-sized wave, what I would call a medium-sized wave, like a sort of 4 or 5 foot wave, you know, and then you're not frightened. They're just really nice waves, and you can start really enjoying how to ride the wave, you know, like,
and how the wave feels.
Yeah, because I was like, the other day, and I'm going to sound like a total dork, because, but I, for the first time, I did, like, I think, I'll never know because no one was watching, there was no camera, so this is fine, but I did a good bottom turn, and then I managed to go up to the top and cut fully back into the white, you know,
what a lovely
back
feeling,
onto the white, and keep going. You know, like, not like bog out. And I loved it. I was like, yes. And then I was like looking around like, oh, yeah.
Someone needs to have seen it to make it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a roundhouse cutback. It's one of the best feelings when you get that right and the white water pushes you back in the way that you were going.
And I was like, oh my God, okay. And then I didn't do it again the whole surf. So, but whatever.
You've got to find the wave again, haven't you? That's really interesting when you mentioned about half pipes, because I feel that half pipe half pipe on a skateboard has got no relation to surfing whatsoever, but half piping on a snowboard, that is like, it's that moment when you come off the top bit of it and it's slightly weightless.
Oh yeah.
And then you push and then down you go. Jenny's probably thinking
No.
you sound like you're doing it wrong. and that feels a lot like surfing.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I think, and then obviously powder feels like surfing as well. 'Cause the
Powder.
controls change.
I would say that even some of my powder riding has improved a bit because of what I've
surfing.
learned in surfing. And like James
Yeah.
Stentiford, who's a really good snowboarder, but a great surfer from Croydway, he, you can tell he surfs, because you can tell a lot of surfers in the snow, because when there's banks and things to hit, they just slash them like it's
That's me.
yeah, it's really cool to watch that. And they're almost better in the powder than they are on the piste, because you've got to use your front foot more on the piste, you know, like the way you, like, without getting dorky techie, but you know, and that is one of the things I've been spending so much time trying to change in my surfing, is not like always having weight at the front the whole time. You've got to bring it to the back, and in surfing you separate a lot more, don't you? Like you separate your upper and lower body, and
Yes, absolutely.
and learning to do that is I'm getting there. Whatever. Sorry, I'm dribbling again.
It's fantastic.
It's all good. It's all good. So Jenny, I just don't want to dwell too much on the travel side of things here, but obviously at the moment this year, and who knows how long in the future, it's going to be tricky. But you've obviously done a huge amount of travel for the snow side of things, but on the surf side you've travelled everywhere as well. But what else is on the radar for you in the future? Where have you got an eye on where you want to go?
For surfing.
Yeah.
Well, hey, so I tell you the other day, in between, just to mention this, because it was in Wales, in between the two lockdown times, I went surfing in Wales to meet a friend there, and we went to Ogmore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Got up 6 a.m, ready to go, put my wetsuit on, didn't even check, put the wetsuit on, went down there, and we got to the river mouth, and there was there was nothing. And we sat drinking tea in my wetsuit, and I was like, yeah, okay.
That's just surf you all over.
But it was amazing, because it looked like it would be wicked, but and
it's a great spot.
It's a fickle bank.
Yeah,
it is.
Rest
It gets
Bay
washed away all the time.
as well. I surf Rest Bay as well, and I've just got to do a shout out, thank you. I don't know who they were, but in Rest Bay there were these 3 Welsh lads that helped me, because I was surfing and I fell off, and my board smacked me full pelt under my chin, and almost sort of, I don't know, it almost caused a bit of a concussion. And these 3 Welsh lads came over and helped me onto my board, and basically really helped me out. And I just want to say thank you. I don't know who they were. I've never spoken or seen them since. So
well, we'll shout out to
there
them.
you go.
If that is you, please let Crest Podcast know. And we'll,
slightly older lads they were. They were like,
okay,
yeah, more like my age upwards. But yeah,
I think there's a reasonable chance with our listeners that story will find its way home there. So yeah, that's great.
Anyway, but yeah, I'd love to go to Ireland. I've never surfed in Ireland, and I think that'd be a wicked trip. And I'd love to go back to Costa Rica now that I can surf a little bit better.
Pavones in Costa Rica.
That's the longest left.
The long left.
I'd love
You've
to.
got to get yourself there, Jenny. That if you
okay.
That is, so that's an absolutely wonderful way.
Where else would you suggest? I feel like things like the Mentawais is too hard for me at the moment. I'm not at that level.
Oh, I've been to the Mentawais, but recently I did go to Bali. And I went for 3 years on the trot actually with the family, and talk about left-handers like pavones. There's a wave there in Bali, just on the Bucket Peninsula, called Impossibles, and it's a left-hander.
I've surfed it.
Have you surfed there? How good
I
is
love that I
wave?
put my hand up like a school child. And you go down all the loads and loads of steps, and there's a little cabana bit there. Holy crap! That is fast.
It
is. It's hard to keep up with. Yeah.
I think there's something about Bali, and that area is just so magical. It gets into you. You know, it's the Indonesian feel, the waves, the warm. It's just like take me back.
Going on the scooter and nearly eating shit off the edges into the thing.
The Balinese road tattoos. And
yes, you see everybody with bandages on.
If you're talking about Arrogant Bay, you're on your backside there, aren't you? But we were talking about lefts. I highly recommend Peru as the land of lefts as well.
Oh, no idea about. Yeah, okay.
I think Peru. Yeah, do a bit of research into Peru. Yeah, there's some fabulous lefts in Peru, including the world's longest wave. They say that Pavona's in Costa Rica is the world's longest, good wave, but Chicama, the world's actual longest wave, is good when it gets a bit of swell. And then there's Pacasmayo, and there's a couple of other spots in the area, Mancora, and then you can go to Machu Picchu as well at the same time.
Cool.
So I highly recommend Peru.
One of the most unusual, random for me places to surf was I went when we were filming a snowboard movie. I went to Iceland to snowboard.
Oh, wow.
But then we went down to the break there, and I surfed in Iceland, and it was, it was an amazing experience. I had to put on so much thick wetsuits and stuff, but I've never forgotten it, and it was 15 years ago now, and it was the best sunset I've ever witnessed, sat in the ocean. I've never forgotten it, and to say that I've been snowboarding and surfing, and just it was so cool to have been there. What's random as well, a mate of ours, Woody, he was surfing there the year after us, and he now runs is it called Le Surfing in Hossega, or he works at one of the spots there, but he, really good surfer, surfed one of the breaks there, and no one had ever seen it surfed, and then they named it. It's now named.
So it's Woody's.
It's named after him. I think it's actually
Woody's.
And I'm like, is that actually on the map? Imagine getting your own break. That is amazing, isn't it? I was like, whoa, but. Anyway, sorry.
You've made it when you've got a spot named
I
after
thought
you,
that. I was
sure.
flipping it. Wow.
You want to try? Well, there is a Jenny's Right, which I've been to in Sumatra.
Sumatra, yeah.
Yeah. So you could always just pretend.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that.
But then you could also have a word with Nick at the wave and maybe see if you can persuade him to sort of name a section after you or something. You could do that.
Haven't they got Swanee's left and you can be Jenny's right?
Retailer in surf, skate or e-bikes? Contact Full Charge, suppliers of Venom and Studio surfboards, Pro Light leashes, Sniper bodyboards, Churchill swim fins, Ari Nui Seps, Voltaway e-bikes, plus many more. We can also help you advertise your business by designing your own branded embroidered changing robes and towels. For more, contact fullchargerhino@gmail.com.
And last year on the podcast we had a run-in debate across several guests, which we dubbed the jocks versus purists. This kind of idea that surfing didn't work as a sport, like a jock sport. Surfing's not a jock sport, says Joel Tudor. And obviously, you were in the thick of snowboarding and snow sports when snow sports, skiing was always, that was never countercultural, was it really? But you were kind of there when it was happening. And I thought snowboarding led the way really nicely. This was my argument. I thought that it managed to go Olympic with its identity kind of still celebrated in the way that it did it. Now, of course, you might disagree with me on that, but I'm just interested in what you think about that kind of identity crisis that both surfing and whether there was a crisis for snowboarding or not. I don't know.
Well, that is a big old topic there, isn't it? It's I never quite know how to approach this as well, because I went to the Olympics, so the fact it sort of came in for me there, it didn't come in, slopestyle didn't come into the Olympics till I was 31. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was basically at the end of my career and I was calling it a day. And then I got that phone call and it was like, all right, okay. Oh my God, maybe I should give this a crack, It isn't the reason that I sort of started it was to be able to go to the Olympics, because it wasn't an option to go to the Olympics. I just really enjoyed snowboarding and everything that came with it, because it was so different. And it was so different to sort of the gymnastics or athletics that I used to do. And that is, so I think that with a lot of people going into snowboarding at the same time as me then, is that the draw was that, it was a bit sort of different and a bit like do whatever you want,
Absolutely,
and have a laugh and whatever. And that's how all of my snowboarding kind of started off, really. And then it gradually changed as I started competing more, but that was in things like the X Games, but I still had that freedom to like do a bit of everything. Now, like I said, halfpipe had gone into the Olympics, and that all started to get a little bit more sort of serious and a bit more strict.
I remember reading something because obviously surfing was trying to get itself into the Olympics, and I remember there was a lot of sort of amused hoo-ha and fanfare amongst surfers when it was announced that they wouldn't be testing for THC in Vancouver, which is the active blood element for somebody who's been having a toke before they compete or something. I'm sure they brought it in the end, and we know people who, it got sort of like really clamped down on in amongst competitive surfers long before the Olympics came along. But I remember there being that kind of like, snowboarding's like, it's going to sell itself out here, it's like we don't want to do, but I'm not sure it's necessarily an accurate description for what happened, though, is it?
But I definitely think there's people that were super against it and probably still are, but I think what's happened is that people that don't want to be a part of the Olympics or go to that, they don't have to, they've not, and there is still like thriving kind of scenes within snowboarding where like I said, they're filming video parts or filming rails or doing that kind of thing, and people just going about their snowboarding trips and adventures and things. And then there are snowboarders that are also competing and that do want to go to the Olympics and do that. Now, I definitely think there's definitely a change now, as we see we're going into like the third cycle. So in that first cycle, it was all the people that were just already snowboarding. It was literally 2 years before we went to an Olympics. We didn't even get a 4-year run in. We had a 2-year run in, which was to my benefit. Otherwise I would have been too old to maybe have not broken myself any more than I had. So but that meant it wasn't until after that I think that you started to notice some changes in how things were run and how things went about. Now, whether that will happen in surfing, I don't know surfing well enough in that respect, but I am aware that, the WSL, that's been around for years and years and years, hasn't it? And it's it's really strong, whereas snowboarding, it was much younger and didn't have maybe as much, it wasn't cemented in and have that structure as much. We sort of got plucked away by what's called FIS, which it's the Federation International Ski, so it's like a ski federation essentially. So we tried to they tried to get it to meet in the middle a bit, and snowboarders didn't want skiers taking on our sport and blah blah blah. And sorry, I've gone on to snowboarding because that's kind of what I know. But with surfing, from what I can see, they've just taken the same structure as the WSL, haven't they? It's like all to do with that. And so anyone that's already doing that and surfing in that sense, are they not already a competitive surfer anyway? So I'm asking you, I don't know what the other aspects, I guess, that it would bring in is that you get, the invasion of the corporates and stuff like that is what you mean, is it? And the high level of media and...
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point you make, and you've kind of anticipated. You've managed to do this all along, actually, very skillfully. You've kind of anticipated that I was going to ask next. Me and Rhino looking at the screen here, going, right, we don't need to ask that anymore.
Oh, sorry, but no, go on.
No, it's great.
Because I'd like to know. I'd like to know from a surfing side, like how.
Yeah, well, got a note here from producer Dodd, which I'm supposed to try and pretend is coming from me, but I can't because he knows his snow much more than I do. And he's talking about in the early 2000s, Ed Lee talking about how some boarders are not supposed to say that either. Overwhelmed with it. Got a bit overwhelmed. They'd competed at the X Games and things like that, but there was this huge step up in media scrutiny. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like if you mean like kind of watching your P's and Q's and watching your behaviour and oh my god, like because if you think after a snowboard contest, everyone would go out and. There's no tomorrow, and you'd celebrate and you'd share your 10% behind the bar, and you'd get, and
I think they still do in a lot of
and surfing is. Imagine surfing's. I reckon surfing's probably more so than that than snowboarding.
Yeah,
I think so.
Well, one of the mags got hold of Matt Wilkinson's bar bill, didn't they? Do you remember when Matty Wilco was? He won like the first 3 CTs of the year. Well, this is going back 2-3 years ago, and he was like cemented at world #1 with like so many points that basically you would have needed to turn into me to not win the world title. And then one of the surf mags got hold of his bar bill at Torquay after winning bells, and it was something ridiculous, like
$50,000.
Yeah, it was like I think it was something ridiculous, like Aussie dollars, like about 5 figures. And Wilco barely won another heat for the rest of the year. But then there's the dark side to that, because a lot of surfers blame the surf media and that kind of lack of fourth estate scrutiny for what happened to Andy Irons. That basically everybody knew Andy Irons' lifestyle. It was the worst kept secret in the world. But no surf and there you go. Maybe Matt Wilkinson didn't win the world title. But that surf mag that published his bar bill certainly sort of, made him sort of, I don't know if it's a good thing or not, but it kind of, that kind of sense that it was like I don't know if it was an expose, if it was, I don't know, yeah. It's a deep question, isn't it? It's a difficult one.
Well, because those things, I just...
If someone had done that to Andy Irons, might it have saved him?
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
That is, yeah.
So do you think surfing can expect a little bit of that kind of minding the P's and Q's and, sort of a bit more interest in the sort of lifestyles of its...
It's just entering a world that you're like, wow, right, this is like what an actual athletes are like. I'm like, as in, not that I didn't think I didn't consider myself an athlete, weirdly. I was a snowboarder or a surfer. It's not like I don't know, I just saw it differently. But then once you go into that, there's a lot you have to accept, really. If you're going to go to the Olympics, you're joining, you've got to be accepted first onto the team and get your qualifying spot. Like I don't know how it works with the qualifying, the surfing, but you've got to, with snowboarding, you had to go and do loads of contests to just get the spot, and it wasn't necessarily your spot. You could get the spot for the team, but then if someone else was better by the time the Olympics rolled round, you might not even be your spot. It was like,
really
brutal. So it wasn't as bad for the Great Britain because it was looking like we had enough spots for the amount of people, but in other countries they had to fight that stuff out, like in championships of their own to decide who even went. But sorry, I'm going off on one. But what was interesting with that is that you'd then qualify in, and then you'd go to all this media training and all this. Media training. And obviously the first time we started having all the testing, so you'd come out of a contest, so. You'd have to go straight, if you got in the top 3, you'd go straight into P testing. You'd have to get the pot and learn how to, this is going off on a tangent, but at the Olympics, after the Olympics, I stood there and it was all really like, you're like, wow, and you're like waving, you've won this medal, you're like, oh my God, you're like in this interview, and it's all really sort of glamorous. And then you walk off to like what I can only describe as like a porter cabin, like you're at a festival and this Russian lady's with you and she's like really strict and she's just like, follow me. And I was like, all right, okay, yeah. And you go into this porter cabin with the other people, with like the other athletes that have won medals. And she took me into a room and she's like, right, stand on this toilet So I was like, okay, I'm in my snowboard boots. Drop your trousers and your knickers. Yeah, all right. Lift up your top and your vest, everything. So now she's like head height with my vajayjay. And then it's like, and then she's like, right, now pee into this pot while I stand here and stare at you. And I was like,
so
oh my
you can't switch it.
God.
Oh.
And then, well, no,
That is horrendous.
and then,
Dear,
and there's mirrors all around you, mirrors. So she, just so that it doesn't look like you've got a tube going down, I guess you're back into your.
So you're not cheating.
Yeah,
Like, you're
it was,
swapping it.
well, but what's ironic is like that is the. Have you seen? You probably haven't seen it actually. It's called Icarus. It's about the all the drug stuff that went on at the Russian Sochi Olympics that I was in.
Right. Yeah.
And ironically, there was loads of.
Oh yeah, because they were state sponsored.
And it was all switching going on at the same time, and I'm like, I was like, no.
And you're the mug for playing straight. You don't agree into it all.
And you don't want to be testing me. Go next door.
I don't know if I should be admitting to this, but for some reason, like I've been laughing over the last couple of days at Gabriel Medina's Instagram because he seems to have like gone off on some holiday somewhere with his girlfriend, and he's got all these tattoos, and they're just like posing in like these kind of soft porn pictures together, and I've just suddenly got this idea of like Gabe Medina, this image of Gabe Medina like standing there with like some Russian woman like going right, making sure that's definitely yours, and
We're
it's
going
like
down a fantastic rabbit hole here.
But yeah, so those sorts
I
of
don't know why it was
things.
him I thought.
It's quite interesting because you're like, God, I've got, I don't know, the British surfers will be doing that kind of thing, and then you're kind of in another corporate world, really, aren't you? That you're not used to at all, and you've got to watch what you put on all your social media, and not, because you're representing your country. It's the first time I'd ever represented my country, and so they want to make sure that that you're not being daft or this, that, or the other. And then it's funny with that drug testing. One of the things that I used to love as a bit of a comfort drink was Lensip. And you can't have that. It's
really?
you'd test positive if you had Lensip, so that was out.
And then have a medal taken off.
Yeah,
Gosh.
yeah. Anyway, I know.
Totally off the question.
Sorry.
Actually, I did watch your Instagram story the other day, and this is just one of my questions, because I just thought it was just the most amazing thing to actually see you standing there on that double-decker bus doing like the glory tour. What was that like? That was like you were kind of. Like, so there was little signs, you'd written little things saying, look at me looking uncomfortable and all this sort of stuff. And I just thought it was brilliant. I really liked it. How was it?
It was so funny. So I came back to Bristol and they were like, we're going to do a bus tour. And I was like, what? I was like, what? And that's like a 35-minute drive from my house into the centre of Bristol, so it's not like a short trip. It was like standing on this bus, but it was what a cool experience,
Yeah,
like just it was awkward knowing how to, like even when I went on the podium at the time, I was like, I don't know, I'm that person going onto the podium. It's what you see on the telly, And I walked on, I was like, oh, I'm the first one because I got bronze. I've got to do it first. I don't know and I ended up waving like this. Oh, you can't see. Sorry, on who people are listening.
The listener,
How do I describe that? If you're a Lego person,
Yes!
that's how you would do it.
It's like
And
a
I was
backward
like,
screen wave.
Yeah, it was really awkward. But then, so I'd make sure I was waving normally on the bus. But do you know what was wicked? All the kids. So the exposure it got for the sport, and I can only imagine this is a positive for like youngsters if surfing got the same amount of exposure like that. Like the snowboarding, like the amount of school kids and people that wrote to me and the schools I went to that were just frothing on snowboarding and getting out and doing the sport was amazing. And like the snow domes were packed out with people, like they couldn't get enough instructors for the amount of people that wanted to learn to snowboard for the months like after that Olympics. And that was so cool to see that, everyone's faces. And when I got off that bus, there was youngsters and people all there. And who knew that Bristol had 2 mayors? I had to meet both the mayors. I was like,
wow.
I know. I was like, anyway. And so all of that was just, for snowboarding, I think it's amazing because you can you know, any of the best surfers that you know, if they were in the UK, anyone not into surfing, they wouldn't have a clue, would they? They wouldn't have a clue and who they are and things. And it doesn't, whatever, really. It doesn't matter. I don't know whether it, I honestly have no understanding of whether it would, how it's going to affect surfing as far as it being, what was it you called it? Jock v purists.
Oh, jocks v purists, that's I wonder whether surfing's big moment like that comes in the next Olympics, because we're looking at the probability of Chiba. I think it's Torami Beach they're talking about. You know, it's a pretty sloppy little beach break unless they get a typhoon or something, where it would be held. But the Paris 2024 Olympics has confirmed that it's going to be holding the surfing just a little bit further afield from Paris. At the end of the road, Tahiti, the end of the road, aka Chopu, and in summer in peak season. And you know, you were saying, Jenny, that you weren't sure if they'd get a waiting period because they might have to choose their days.
Yeah, like, I mean, if they do, well, surely they'd have to have a waiting period then, and how would everyone train for that? Oh my God!
I mean, do you do you just throw yourself over the ledge and just hope for the best? Sometimes you think.
Would you have to get scored? Or like, do you have to get a wave to get scored?
Yes.
Your hands have to leave the rail.
Yeah. So there you would.
So the I suppose, you know, that would be, if they get proper Chopu, you know, that site will be sort of, you know, broadcast to the world on like BBC Sport, and, you know, whatever, you know, like it'll go around the world as
it'll be everybody's dream destination to go to. They'll have to put security up there to stop people who shouldn't really be there.
Just getting a boat out and trying it, won't they?
Yeah.
Do you not think that the one coming up then will have that effect, because you just think the waves will be crappy?
I don't know. Yeah, I honestly don't know. Yeah, because I mean, it hasn't yet really sort of translated itself that well to TV. You know, like a sort of a 2-foot beach break.
But is it a shame in a way, because you won't be able to see what they are capable of, because it's is it that low quality sort of thing?
I think it is. Yeah. I think yes. And in terms of like this, what was the stuff that sort of sold slopestyle to the world? You know, it was those big airs and stuff like that. And I think, you know, it's not that likely. You know, we'll probably see someone like Italo Ferrer doing like the kind of scoop air, you know, where they sort of like trick their board into flicking out of the lip rather than the like big punts. And then the Chopu one will be interesting. You know, I'm sorry to skip back ahead again, because you know I don't really know what to expect of the Japan one, but that Chopu one, you also will need. So I think with Tokyo it won't be such an issue, because everyone who's going to qualify is going to be able to surf, do the sort of the 2-foot beach break thing. But with Chopu, you will also need to set up a qualification system that means that your John Johns, you know, or your Italo Ferrers or people like that have qualified. And the best female surfer of Chopu is Vahini Fierro from Tahiti, from Chopu.
Right.
And you know, she's, you know, nowhere near the kind of ranking positions that you need to qualify.
Right, so there's that.
When the women go to Chopu, hopefully this year, the women are going to Chopu for a CT this year.
Yeah.
Vahini Fierro will get a wild card, and so we'll all get to see her do it. But we might end up with like that contest excluding the best surfer at that wave because they couldn't qualify in a 2-foot beach break somewhere. You know.
That's I guess a situation that we wouldn't have. Yeah, we didn't have that issue. But you're right. You're right as well with the level. It's like seeing tiny little. It'd be like watching snowboarders go off. You know, tiny little moguls jumps or something, like little things, trying to do double corks or triple corks, what you just can't do. So then it levels the playing field, and then the following Olympics go into something where the jump is like, I don't know,
and you've got all the wrong guys in it. Yeah,
right.
You've got all the wrong guys in it.
Right.
Yeah, it's a very good analogy. Last topic, but one. I'm going to leave the but one to Rhino. Can we just return to that wave pools discussion briefly? And how do you think that wave pools are poised to change the way that surfing is consumed and trained for? Because I suppose, that is, what we can with a wave pool, we can say, right, you guys need to learn to tube ride, let's turn the tube on.
Right, yeah. Because
we can kind of try and...
What's funny as well, talking about it like this, is because surfing for me was always like away from competing, and it's now...
Yes.
It
Oh, sorry, and now we're asking you about...
No, but that's what's...
about how...
No, because it's just interesting, isn't it? Because you're like, oh yeah, because I've only ever seen it as this kind of fun thing that I escape competing with, but now, that is... The wave pools are ideal for that, aren't they? For people that want to, like, I definitely learned, like, I felt like, anyway, correct me if I'm wrong with this, but because I got so many waves at that wave pool, you catch so many in an hour, I really felt like my progression was going a little bit quicker than it would do out in like just UK surf or whatever, but then there's so many elements that you're not learning as well. So the combination, I think the combo of having a wave pool and going to the ocean is like probably key, is it not, for the youngsters coming through? But I think it's a positive thing to be able to ride those wave pools as like a sort of training time. Especially if that's all you've got, like if you can't get anywhere and you're living in like there's youngsters in Bristol that don't have a chance to go to the ocean maybe and those sorts of things, but they've got this opportunity to come and have a go at the wave, or I think that's like a wicked opportunity for them to be able to do that. But as far as training goes, I don't know enough about how you train with the surfing to know. You know more than me about whether that's beneficial. I feel like I'm fully gone round in circles, and you should chop that bit out, but you're not going to. So keep going. I'm trying to think. Like, it's the same as, okay, let's say I was trying to learn a specific trick on my snowboard. I would get on the drag lift. I'll even admit, I went to the Snowdome at lunchtimes through the middle of the winter when I was home, because I needed to learn a specific rail trick. And I just hiked in a Snowdome till I got that trick on that rail, because I needed that to up my rail game to then help with the rest of my snowboarding. So I did like an intense week of that. So I can imagine doing that in the wave pool. If you just went there, for 3 days or whatever, and you were trying to learn airs, is it, or 360s, or look at all the groms like Sky Brown. I follow a bit on the Insta, and the lassie I was telling you about, the Welsh. She's not Welsh. She is Welsh. The young, watching her at the wave. Holy smokes! If she's riding that that often at that, it's got to be good for you, hasn't it?
I think so, and I think that perhaps we're going to see I don't know whether we're going to see a more rounded surfer, because that part of their training is going to be part of visiting these wave pools, and especially at Bristol, the wave. It is. I think it's the wave pool that all the three that I've been to is the one which is most like the ocean.
Okay.
And I think that's the thing where, even like, I've been surfing for quite a long time, and I can still perfect turns or like cutbacks, and just over and over and over, and then once you translate that back to the ocean, you go, oh yeah, I can. You sort of just take it off as second nature after being to the wave pool. So yeah, I think it's a really positive thing.
Yeah. So I've got a question for you. If you're, as someone who is way better and more experienced with surfing, is there ever been a point in that wave pool where you've gone, no, I've learned as much as I can learn in there, or can you constantly always be progressing in it?
I think there's so much, like, you can, although the wave is, when people talk about the wave in Bristol and say up at in North Wales as well, the wave is always the same. There's always, like, the wind will change it just very slightly, so you'll have different variations, but yeah, I think you can keep learning. For sure, you'll always keep learning. There's definitely the possibilities are endless. I think, for sure, definitely.
And you could just change what manoeuvre you're going to do on that section.
Absolutely.
So if you went, I would love to go to the wave enough to really be sure that I'd sat on that foamy bit pulled into the tube as far back as you could get into it and come out. And it's hard to come out without getting your fringe clipped because it just turns as you come out, you know. And
you are quite tall though.
I am quite tall, yeah. And I'm blaming Rudder Rava, the guy that I took to film me there, because every single wave he filmed of me, I get my fringe clipped on the way out. I haven't got one clue. And but then if you did feel like you perfected that section, well then you just go, well now I'm going to see what happens if I do a lipper on that tube section instead. And
Okay.
then if you perfected that, you go, well now I'm going to do that front side wrap around carve that you were talking about earlier, Jenny, you know, and kind of just practice that.
Because it's never gonna it's never ever gonna replace like ocean surfing, but I don't think it's not trying to, is it? And I think that's what's cool, is that it's just there to have to try and grab something to then be able to take that thing to the ocean, because then when you do it in the ocean, then you're really doing it, aren't you?
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, and all the other aspects with ocean surfing and like learning about wave selection and everything like that is so. I'm such an amateur at all of that there's all that aspect to learn, isn't there, that you just combine it all together. And I do think that the few contests that I've obviously watched, that it's way more exciting in the ocean for a comp, because it doesn't become almost, is sterile the right word? It's like, because I'm definitely out of my comfort zone here with what I should say.
Wave comes into it, doesn't it? Yeah, I think
because that's what's really cool. Is like, what are they going to pick, and how are they going to? And you don't know what the wave's going to do, and that's exciting, isn't it, for people watching? I think.
Yeah. And also reading what a wave is going to do in the ocean, you are reading it by you've been surfing that spot. You know where the rocks are, or you know where the sandbar is, you know where you are in the lineup, you know from where you're taking off what this wave's likely to do, and you're watching the wave up ahead, and you're not just watching the wave, you're watching the shoreline, you're watching the whiteboard, the foam in front of it, you're watching how, and whereas you're in a wave pool, and like, you know what the wave is going to do, even though you can't yet see that section building, like you're not making any of those reads based on anything, you just go, well, I know it does this bit next, and there's water that hasn't yet been created, like, is about to do that. If you're able to practice that move on
hundreds of times or whatever,
yeah,
then when you do get into the ocean and you finally get that, something like that comes up similar, you've got a bit bigger chance of actually achieving it, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I reckon. Or like, it's funny how you say reading what's what. It's like me at Croyd going, oh, here I am at low tide, getting smashed for the 50th time in a row and not getting up quick enough.
Purifying for the soul.
I know. I snapped my leash the other day, and I was like, "Oh right, this is the swimming in thing, the swim of shame." But anyway,
we've all done it though. Surely we've all done it.
Do you know what I've not done yet? And I cannot wait for this day. I've never been barreled. I know.
Croyd low tide is they're out there.
Tell me that might happen.
It'll happen. It certainly will. Yeah, certainly. You'll
know about it, I suppose, if it does.
It'll be all over your Instagram. I got barreled.
One day, it's coming.
Okay, so Tom said last but one, because we have a tradition which we had hoped to shake off, but which unfortunately is still needed in 2021 for now, at least. Last year, with international travel all but banned, we tried to comfort both guests and listeners, and indeed ourselves, by remembering all the things that can go wrong on a trip. Who misses travel anyway? That was the idea, at least. As a result, the quest for the best surf travel nightmare was born. And I thought I didn't actually have one when I was asked, but when I thought about it, I had actually had one. My plane caught fire when we were in the sky. I got stuck in multiple earthquakes, and a bomb went off outside my hotel. But these were all happening when I was on my way to Bali, so it didn't actually feel like such a nightmare at the time. So it all counts though, I suppose. So Jenny, can we ask you if you've had a surf travel nightmare at all, and has anything ever happened to you on a surf trip to make you wish you could be at home at whatever the cost?
Oh no, I don't think I've... Oh no, I haven't thought about this.
If it hasn't been a surf nightmare, it can be a snow nightmare as well. It doesn't actually matter.
Yeah, we did have one from Val Thorens last season, actually. Yeah.
What was that? What? Tell me a quick.
It was that was getting really, really ill and having to spend an entire trip like sitting inside ill. But he'd gone to visit a mate who was working the season, and he just his mate just came in every evening smiling and laughed at him. I remember the line, him saying something like he spent most of the week wanting to cry but too tired to cry, or something whilst watching the race.
I don't think I've got a really quality story.
Well, that's okay,
I've basically, with surf trips, the things I've had is in Morocco. I've had the classic where you definitely had the
in Tarazu.
No surf that whole week as well, but that's probably beneficial because I couldn't really go anyway. And so I've had those ones, and I've had
that's
in
all right. That qualifies.
Sri Lanka, I've had the paddle across. So we've gone off to surf at the Rock, and you walk all the way down the beach.
Yeah.
Or I think it was just called the Rock. I don't know if that's the name. And then to come back, they dug the whole river mouth open, so the entire river mouth was pouring out, so you couldn't get across.
Like rancid water.
So the only way was to do the 2-hour walk round or paddle across the croc-infested lake thing. So I've definitely done the we just went for it on the paddle, but my mate was on a longboard and I was on a shortboard, and I was like, hang on a minute,
that's not
I've got more limbs going in the water here, they're all so that was pretty bad. I think snowboarding, I'll tell you I don't even know how much time we've got. Have we got time? I don't know.
Yeah, we got time.
Okay.
We got time.
But it was,
and you've got time to have more surf trip nightmares happen. To you
can I bring one in maybe on another? I don't. I've got potential there, haven't I? I'm sure. But it was. I tell you why it was a bit rubbish is that when I went to Stratton in America to do a snowboard contest, it was the last one of the World Series, and I was in with a chance of winning the World Series, and I was like, oh my god, this was back it's probably not the same in tennis or motor racing or whatever, but $100,000 was in for the win, and I was like, whoa, that is legit. And this is I could be the world champion, World Series champion. And I was like, fuck. So anyway, so I had to come first or second in this contest. And I was like, okay, all right. Did my first run, massive slam, smashed my coccyx, right up, on this icy feeling. And I pulled up to one side. I was in bits, and my physio and the doctor did an initial check, and they were like, I think you've actually probably fractured your tailbone. And I was like, yeah, but I've got to do a run because I've got to get a score, and what should I do? And I was like, so I smashed a load of painkillers. I got a really thin cushion off someone and put it down my trousers just to protect myself in case I fell, and then I dropped in. I was like, I don't know why I did it. Did I do it for the wrong reasons? I don't know. But I dropped in, did my run, landed it, and I was like, oh my god, maybe I have done this. And I didn't come first, I didn't come second, but I frigging came third, and I was absolutely gutted. But then they put me in an ambulance straight away, took me straight to the hospital, and the doctor looked over me, and he was like 60-year-old, wrinkly old dude, and he's like, you've not broken it yet, but you've displaced your tailbone. Do you know what we need to do to put it back in position? And I was like, no, what? And so basically I went from winning £100,000 to some dude sticking his up my ass.
Oh dear.
And I was like,
that qualifies.
This always happens. Every guest, I don't think I got one, they go, and then
pull one out the bag,
and then out comes a perler.
Yeah, but it's not like a trip, isn't it? It's not surfing, so probably.
No. It says clearly on the script here that we take. Dodd has given us permission. We take snow nightmares He's even written down how to pronounce Val Thorens for us, just in case we didn't
Thorens, so you don't say,
so we don't say it. Just to sort of, the comforting way to look at it, right, is that if you'd won, you might have gone out and done a Matty Wilco, and Jenny Jones's bar tab could have been published in the Daily Mail, and then so maybe it was a narrow miss. But that is terrific.
Maybe
Jenny. Thank you very much.
Maybe I made that old doctor's day. You never know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe he's on another podcast somewhere telling that story. Job done, that is. Yeah. Who misses surf trips or snow trips? Not us, because that's what we're going to keep telling ourselves anyway, until it's possible to head back out to Bali, or Costa Rica, or the Maldives, and to hear the noise of the tropical wax against a fresh deck, as you watch first light perfection reel across a multicoloured warm water reef, groomed by the night's offshore.
All right, Tom.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, mate. All right.
Horrible thing, surf travel. Who needs it? Thank you, Jenny, for that tale. That was absolutely brilliant. And can I just say a massive thank you for coming on Crest as well. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And I'm going to do a big plug here now for they're coming up next year now. You can go on a snow trip. If you look up www.workshopbyjennyjones.com, and you're doing these workshops out. And where are they going to be?
Yeah, so I run snowboard workshops out in Japan. I do backcountry in Japan. Then France is also backcountry, but I do mindset courses as well.
It's undoing all the talking surf trips down again now.
Yeah.
And sorry, what was the other bit you said you did?
Well, they're all bespoke. So some are, backcountry specific. Some are mindset. So you get to work on the psychology side of things, as well as, to try to improve your riding. But they all involve loads of snowboard coaching and loads of adventures. And they're for a variety of levels. So they're mostly intermediate, but we do, for the first time next year, have some beginner courses too. But you know what? It's just a really good week to come and shred and enjoy the mountains. So yeah, for sure, check those out. They'll be out. I think we're launching them in April for next winter. Yeah.
Which is when our episode will be out. So that's where we'll make sure that we share all of that.
Oh, sorry, that was
So that's www.workshopbyjennyjones.com.
Yes.
Thanks, and hopefully we'll catch you in the water soon.
Can I jump in and just say thank you? It's been so cool to talk to people about surfing, because it's not, and I'm definitely going to try and get some surf tips off you if I see you in the sea. Is that allowed?
Absolutely,
Jenny.
Yeah. And Rhino's a good one for surf tips on how to handle a crowd as well.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Well, is he going to heckle me and tell me to?
He'll heckle for you.
Less said about that, the better.
And hopefully maybe even we'll all catch a session abroad somewhere. We can live in hope. And of course, can we also say a massive thank you to you, the listener. And we're taking submissions to Surf Travel Nightmares again, by the way. Have a look at our Instagram for inspiration, or email us at castcrest@gmail.com.
And Jenny, I'd also like to say thanks ever so much as well. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I've been stoked to be able to chat in with you today. And as Tom said, when all this is over, I'd love to have a wave with you, whether it be in Bristol or down in Croyd as well. That would be superb. And I just need to add that Crest is available through Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple and YouTube. And if you like what you hear, do please subscribe and review. In our next episode, we will be chatting to the proprietor of Bike Club Hossegor and South Walian expat Jeremy Jem Evans about more surf trips, both dream and nightmare alike, with a particular focus on reminiscing about that amazing journey he and I took through France, Spain and the UK with the legend that is Tom Curran. Between now and then, let's hope spring is sending us all some decent and warmer waves as the days get longer for everyone. And thanks again for listening, and see you next time on Crest. See you!
Hoi la macho.
See ya!